a big thanks to my co-host and IT guru extraordinaire, Mark Hart. Give us a wave, Mark. Say hi. Mark records all these sessions on the OC Callers website for posterity, so you can always go down and download the sessions, download the material that's available, and rewatch them at your leisure. Also, if you would like to record any of these sessions that you attend, just send Mark a quick message in the chat, and he will give you the recording privileges. So welcome, everybody. Today's session, what we're going to be talking about, so give me 1 second here while I try and share the screen. There we go. You should all be able to see my screen now.
Yep.
Yes? Okay, what we're going to be talking about is essentially two-couple calling, but we're going to look at it a little more in the theory side so that you can get a better understanding, because it's a lot more than just calling to two couples. It's a lot more than just isolated sight. I put it into the concept of if you've only got two pair, you can still play poker. It's a good hand when you don't have a full house. So you have to play the cards that you're dealt with in poker, the same with square dancing. You have to call to the dancers that walk in the door, and sometimes all you get is two pairs of dancers or two couples. So that's what we're going to look at a bit. So let's go back a little bit and talk about some recent developments in two-couple calling. During the COVID lockdown from square dancing and continuing today, there was a plethora of Zoom sessions and Skype calling, and it became normal for many callers to modify the standard square dance two-couple calling or calling to a square with phantom dancers. It must be noted there is a very significant difference between two-couple calling and calling with phantoms. Primarily, the difference is that when you have two couples and you're dancing as a square with phantoms, many of the dancers end up having difficulty with the dancers adjusting to who is actually where and picturing in their mind, where is that empty dancer spot? I've got a ghost I'm dancing with. Okay. Phantom dancing is a high advanced level concept, but it's been brought down to the basics and the mainstream to say, picture where the other dancers are and just make. And as you can see on the Zoom session, some of them you see a couple people standing, some people you see sitting. That's from a two-couple calling or a Zoom dancing session on virtual dancing. And some people just sit and watch, other people actually get up and move around the room. The basics is we don't have any dancers. We don't have any dancing. We're practicing accordingly. But one of the things that happened is a modification of this emerged where couples would orient themselves as head couples and dance promenades as if they were in a whole square, but they would only dance two couple figures. This was an easy transition, was primarily used to allow the presentation of singing call music, but using a modification of the isolated two couple choreography. So for example, a modified singing call would be if we take a standard singing call, head square through, do, si, do, swing through, boys run, bend the line, right and left through, flutter wheel, slide through, swing your corner, and promenade. That's your standard singing call. In two couple choreography or in virtual dancing, it became head square through four, do a partner trade, swing through, boys run, bend the line, and all the rest just followed. And you would either swing your corner, which would be the opposite lady if you wanted progression, or you would do an Alaman left if you didn't want progression. Or sorry, you'd swing your partner, I should say, if you didn't want progression. As you can see, the use of the do, si, do in that became a partner trade after the square through just to get the couples facing each other. And from there, it was pretty much standard two couple singing call figure with a modification of the Alaman left for the partner change or a swing for a no partner change. This, to many new callers, was actually the discovery of two-couple calling in square dancing, and it's where a lot of newer callers realized that a very large percentage of the activity and a very large percentage of choreographic sequences right through the Plus program are simply done with two couples. So simple modifications made it easy to convert from convert two-couple formations, such as tandems, into facing couples. Examples: lead couple, do a partner trade. Now I've got a tandem converted to two couples just with the directional call. So the question is, when would you use it? Well, there's a lot of times when you want to use two couple calling as a programming or as a showmanship tool. There are also times when you can use two couple calling as a teaching tool, such as a revision or the Sicilian circle, which is a great tool for starting your class up and reviewing everything that you've done up to that point. One of the most common these days is when we have less than two full squares, but we want to get as many people dancing as we can. And that's where a Sicilian circle is absolutely brilliant. What we're going to do in this session is provide a bit of insight on how to more effectively use this type of calling, and also have an awareness of some of the pitfalls of overuse and abuse of two couple calling. So what you have to look at is, when do we want to use it? Well, ideally when there's not enough dancers for a square. For example, if you have exactly 6 or 10 couples and you want to get everybody dancing at the beginning of an evening, you can do it for review. You can use two couple dancing, or you can use a Sicilian circle with two couple routines and interact the dancers just by calling pass through, move to the next. It's also a great teaching tool when you have to teach or review or workshop any of these 4 dancer calls or two couple calls. It allows you to have all the dancers focus on their part of the movement without the clutter of the rest of the square being active, or somebody else moving and distracting you, or just standing and watching you. Okay, you concentrate on your own two couples all the time. And sometimes it's just a fun little gimmick to play with a little bit of asymmetric calling, but easy to fix stuff. That's just a little dance by definition, or extended or quirky, but not overly difficult. And this can be done as an extra tip or just something a little bit different. It is noted, however, that it is a definite way to strengthen your dancers with the extended applications, or by definition, hyper-extended applications such as all position dancing or dancing by definition, if your group is so inclined to do that. Two couple or 4 dancer dancing often strengthens the dancer's positional and their formation awareness within their group of 4. And what happens is it sends them to the point where they can actually see the transitions. They can see the angles. They can see how much is a quarter, how much is a half, how much is 3/4, without being distracted by movement of the rest of the square, because they're only focused on their own group of 4. And this is a particular use when you're fractionalizing calls for later programs beyond plus. The biggest bonus: dancer confidence, position, and formation awareness. So how do we set this up? Well, you start by forming 2 normal facing couples, boy on the left, girl on the right. I recommend, this is just a personal favorite of mine, unless you're using a Sicilian circle, that you have everyone established in the head position, one couple with their backs to the caller, one couple facing the caller. Setting this up in spaced couple lines automatically turns the dancer's ears on. I want you to make 2 facing couples. They're doing something different. It's automatic. No, that's not normal. So they're going to start listening because they know something different is coming. The next thing you have to do is, the couples are named and the dancers are named. So you have to reassure them. Couple number 1 has their back to the caller. Couple number 3 is facing the caller. Inform the dancers that they're couple number 1 and number 1 man, number 1 lady, number 3 man, number 3 lady. It's very important to tell this to the dancers, because you are going to give directional calling to individuals. So make sure that they know that other than squaring up, the terms, heads, and sides no longer have any meaning to them. But words like couple number 1, couple number 3, man number 1, or identified dancer, the couple facing me, or the dancer, the girl looking at the caller, the girl looking away from the caller. Make sure that they know, because they have to remember their couple number and their dancer number. And by making a quick explanation, it's taking me longer to explain how to do this than it actually does to do it to the dancers, but it turns them on to listen. And finally, inform the dancers that they're also going to be referred to, they should know this already, but inform them again, as leaders, as trailers, as those looking at me, as those with their back towards me, because they have to listen for these cues. Setting this up turns the ears and the brain on. So what can we do with 2 couple choreography? Well, most of the calls on the basic list, mainstream, and plus list can be done using only 2 couple calls. At basics, the ones we can't do is an Alamo style ring, a 4 ladies chain, an all 8 circulate, and a Ferris wheel. Some movements that are always seemingly viewed as 8 dancers call will work with 2 couples, although they're in what we call the degenerative case. For example, a right and left grand, a weave the ring, a do passo. Okay, these kinds of things, they're called the degenerative case because you have to modify it. If you do a weave the ring, you've got to go partner, next dancer, partner, next dancer, back to the partner again. And it's degenerative. It's not comfortable, but it's something that's come out a lot in Zoom dancing so that callers can use singing calls. There's other things like walk around your corner, seesaw your partner. Well, basically, you're just doing it as 2 couples. A couple circulate is just a couple's trade. These are degenerative cases. Okay. At mainstream, there's only one more call that requires 8 dancers. That's spin chain through. As with basic, there's only a few calls that are normally viewed as 8 dancer calls, but can be also done in the diminutive or the degenerative case. These are things like the 8 chain through family or the thars and whatnot. Okay. I personally say avoid them, but when you think about it, an 8 chain, if I do an 8 chain 4, I'm basically doing right and left through, right and left through. If I'm doing a thar, I'm basically doing a degeneration into an ocean wave. Shoot that star is basically a turn through with a directed ending. These are degenerative cases. Other calls which normally are perceived as 8 dancer calls like Zoom or double pass through, they require only a rethink of the dancer's individual formation in the tandem where you have 1 set of leaders, 1 set of trailers. For instance, on a double pass through, if you simply put 1 dancer in front of the other to form a single line and do a double pass through, you've got 2 couples, put the ladies in front, double pass through. Now I've got a single line with the girls in front and they're all back to back. I can do a zoom from there. The leader will zoom away from the center. The center is which shoulder they pass, be it left or right. They away and they remake in behind just like a normal zoom. In in the case of movements like pass to the center or dive through, you can easily identify a center as being the caller or the center of the hall or a directed dancers. In reality, it's best just to identify the couple on the outside, like couple number 3 is on the outside, dive through. So they know who goes under, they know who makes the arch. Similarly, a grand square would be one of those calls where you do heads do your part, grand square, walk 2, 3, turn, and so on and so forth. These are the degenerative cases. At plus, there's 29 movements listed. 11 of those cannot be done. Okay, and there's spin chain the gears, grand swing through, triple scoot, ping pong circulate, load the boat, coordinate, track 2, spin chain and exchange the gears, relay the deucey, and all 8 spin the top. Now, load the boat as an 8 couple movement can't be done, but it's always being done as do your part, do the outsides part, or do the centers part, load the boat. So what does this mean? It means basic and mainstream, 5 out of the 67 movements that are listed cannot be done with 2 couples. That's 93% of dancing through mainstream can be done with just 2 couples. At plus, it's up to 34% that you can't use. Now, when you think about it, that's a lot of material that can be done with just 2 couples. And it must be noted that some of these 8 dancer calls can be used somewhat with 4 dancers by using the do your part, or when you've got formations like the Sicilian circle, veer to the left, and everybody do the centers part or the looking in part of Ferris wheel. So you've got dancers moving up to the next. It's a good way to progress. That variation is only part of your limitation if you make that a limitation for you. So when we're going to sight call to 2 couple sets, it's relatively easy, even if you're not a sight caller. It's also good practice for new callers to manage dancers and to practice keeping them moving and seeing resolutions to get them right back to home, which is on the footprints they started. Just remember 1 couple, example, couple number 1, and keep calling. Eventually, your dancers are going to get back to their starting position. And if you can see this at any point you can say, "You're home." Say it with great enthusiasm, and the dancers will be impressed, ever so impressed, regardless of how convoluted or how convoluted seeming your choreography may have been. When you find this out very quickly, you're going to determine such things as two couple flow sequences. A good example, Dixie style to an ocean wave, swing through, chain down the line. That's a beautiful little flow sequence, and it's got that unusual center starting the swing through, but you can't really do anything else without feeling uncomfortable. You get movements like touch a quarter, walk and dodge, boys fold, star through, boys trade, wheel and deal. Another nice little flow sequence. You get short two couple to home sequences. These two couple start at home, finish at home are basically two couple zero modules. Slide through, touch a quarter, box circulate, boys run, reverse flutter wheel. You're home. Hey, I've got a zero module for two couples. Swing through, boys run, tag the line, face left, wheel and deal. You're home. I've got a two couple module. They're also good for two couple short focus modules. And if you remember back when we did the sessions on focus modules, if we pick a focus movement, for instance, in the first one, we want to use spin the top followed by a recycle. Okay. Spin the top, swing through, recycle, and sweep a quarter more. Great flow, great focus movement. Swing through, spin the top, recycle, left swing through, spin the top, recycle. Now I can start using an extended application that flows really well using my focus movements. The reality is this technique is a win-win scenario for both the callers, because they start with looking at that number one couple where their footprints are, and they finish where those footprints are. And once you get them to those footprints, your square is resolved, your two couples are resolved. It's a win-win scenario for both callers and dancers, as long as you don't overuse it and you don't abuse it. So what we're going to do now is just talk about expanding that two couple dancer technique, or the two pair technique, into the square. And we've talked about this before, so we're just going to do this briefly. Once you become comfortable sight calling to two couples, you can use that newly developed skill with a four couple square. And that is essentially done using the basic traffic pattern, or the chicken plucker. Okay. So if I do heads square through four, at this point, I've got two sets of facing couples. Everyone's facing their corner, and the square is in an Alaman left position. Okay. So all I'm doing is taking that one box. I take a snapshot. Who's on the outside? Couple number four is on the outside. I can call to them till the chickens come home, as long as I end it with couple number four on the outside. I only work the two couples. I sight call to them. Then I can call a chicken plucker, right and left through, dive through, pass through, or just pass through, trade by. Depends on what you want to do. If you want them out of sequence or in sequence, whichever one you're more comfortable with. Once again, you've got two facing couples. This time your paired couple is on the inside. If I just call pass through, trade by, they're all in sequence. I do more two couple calling. As soon as I get their footprints back in that same spot, then they're back in that right-hand box. Everybody's in sequence or out of sequence, depending on which one you used. I can just call the chicken plucker, or if I used a pass-through trade by again, call it again. My square is resolved back to that corner box. It's a very, very simple technique for choreographic management. Once you get that and you sight call those two couples, you can do another little module. If you've got a module, you can do a focus module. If you've got that, you can do two couple sight calling. Once you get them back on those footprints, guess what? Alaman left, right and left grand, and you're home. It's the same two couple technique, just brought into the square. You only have to worry about one half, because the other half is going to be doing exactly the same thing because of the symmetrical mirrored aspect of the square, or the diagonal opposites. Okay, the important thing when using two couple calling is, and we're not talking just two couples isolated in a square, but is to make sure that the dancers have fun doing it. They're doing something that is out of the ordinary. I'm not talking a full square just calling two couples. I'm setting it up two couples, setting up a Sicilian circle, setting up a different formation, so you're only dancing two couples. You've got to make sure the dancers have fun because they're doing something that's just a little bit out of the ordinary. The caller has to concentrate on keeping the dancers moving to the music with smooth flowing choreography. Don't worry about resolving or doing intricate choreography when you're doing this. Just keep the dancers going with lots of direction changes. The reason I say don't worry about resolving, there's only so many possibilities that you can do, and there's only so many different ways you can move the dancers. They're going to get into that home position eventually. Okay? Finish each sequence that you're doing with great enthusiasm. Reverse flutter wheel, you're home, clap, 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 or whatever, but something that's going to generate noise and enthusiasm with the dancers. What it does is it helps make that two couple choreography a lot more fun and a lot more exciting. It makes it an event for the dancers. It's very hard to maintain interest with only two couples. And I'm not going to lie to you about it. There's so much you can do, but maintaining that interest has to come from the caller. You have to generate that enthusiasm. Dancing two couple dancing, if you're going to only dance two couple dancing, it gets tiring and it gets boring very quickly. Despite that fact, there's a plethora of choreographic sequences and variations available to an innovative caller. There is, after all, only so much you can do with two couples to make it seem like they're interacting with other dancers and not just being reviewed on movements and positions. You have to make it interesting. You have to make it exciting. Because of this, there are a few techniques to be aware of and the two couple group dynamic setups that can be used to entertain dancers with just two couple choreography. And it's important that you learn these. The first, of course, as always, is showmanship. Okay. Dancers are there for the entertainment. Dancers are there for the event. Dancers are there to have fun and they're there to enjoy the show. Like all square dancing, calling is showmanship. Always remember the enjoyment is all about the experience and the show. It's not about the choreography. Choreography is important, but overall, the choreography is really a small part of the experience. It's unfortunately the part that most callers seem to concentrate on, and it's the part that most dancers don't really care about. They just want to move and have fun. It's one of the least things that's going to be remembered by the dancers. They think differently than we do as callers, and because of this, you have to achieve two things. One, be excited about calling two couple material. If it's just routine drills to you, think about how they feel. If you're bored and you're going to say, okay, we're going to review what we did. Okay, do the right and left through, make an ocean wave, swing through, spin the top, boy, move up, right and left through, flutter wheel, And if you're calling like that, you're bored because you're just doing a reinforcement routine. But if you call, do it outside, make an ocean wave, just the center girls trade, swing through, spin all top, and a boy move up, and a right or left through. Put that emphasis, put that drive into it, because if they're bored, you're boring. If you're bored, you're going to make them bored. And if you're bored, they're already putting their hats and coats on and going home before you're finished. Number two, you've got to have fun. They've got to have fun. Have fun. If you have fun and make it fun for yourself and not the choreographic puzzle, but fun for the entertainment show and the experience, the dancers are going to feel that and they're going to have fun doing it. Okay, that's your bit on showmanship. Next thing you got to do is you got to mix the dancers. It feels unnatural to square dancers to always dance with the same two people and not mix with other dancers on the floor. Sometimes you can't help it because you may only have two couples show up. That means you can play. But when you have more than two couples show up, learn to mix the dancers as much as you can. Two couple calling isolates four people in a group even more. Nevertheless, when calling two couples as an entertainment portion of the dance, ensure that they socialize with the rest of the people that are there. And this can be done in a number of different ways. After calling, let's say you set the floor up with two couples. And you got two couples over here, and you got two couples over there, and two couples over there. Excuse me. what you want to do is you want to call something like pass through and scatter promenade. Send everybody all over the floor and say, right, when you meet another couple, do a do-si-do, make an ocean wave. It's okay. I'll wait. Find somebody. Hey, there's a couple of, play with them a little bit. Get them moving. Don't worry about position on the floor or anything else. You just want the dancers to have fun and you want them to mix with new people. Okay. You can randomly direct everyone to find another couple if they haven't and join with another couple. And then you can eventually make a set or a set of 6 or a set of 8 or a set of 12 and put them in a line and do something and then pass through and scatter promenade again with different people. There's lots of ways that you can play. One of my favorites, this is number 3, is a Sicilian circle. This is where you get 2 couples facing one direction. Blue are going to the right, the red are going to the left. And you do 2 couple dancing, usually with pick a couple, swing through, spin the top, slide through, pass through, move to the next. Now I'm interacting with other dancers in the Sicilian circle, and I can do all sorts of 2 couple drills. This is my favorite thing at the beginning of the evening, welcoming the dancers in because they can all interact with each other. I can review everything that's gone on. I love doing it. Another one is the contra line. And that's just set up 2 long lines consisting of facing couples down the hall. This is where you actually set them up in sides, like side positions. Get everyone with their partner in long facing lines, then mix the couples. The hall set up with the lines going down the hall, usually facing side walls, and you would call sequences like do the right and left through and a quarter more. Couples circulate, bend the line. Well, just by doing that, what I've done is I've moved them to another couple. I can call things like pass the ocean, girls trade. Boys circulate around the outside, girls circulate around the inside. Recycle, star through. I've now moved them another couple around. Pass the ocean, recycle. Veer to the left and couples circulate, bend the line. I've now moved them around to new dancers, but I've gone the other way. There's all sorts of ways of moving them around to interact with other dancers. And although the movements that you're going to call is just 2 couple dancing, nevertheless, in contra lines, the choreography is a little more skilled to move the dancers around, especially as couples or as individuals progressing, such as the AC-doocy method, which was the one in the middle, swing through, girls trade, boys circulate, or girls circulate, boys trade, depending on what you want to do, in order to keep the dancers in the same group with their partners. So you can keep their partners, but you rotate the couples around to a different position in the line. And although these sequences start and end in long-facing lines, they mix each couple to work with different pairs, all the while keeping the original partner. So contras themselves are essentially 2 couple choreography done in long lines. So you've got a lot of options there to play with to keep it interesting. That's the techniques. Now, as far as variety goes, this is something different. Okay. Choreographic variety, one of the things, well, 2 couple choreography allows a caller to delve into a lot of extended applications and add innovative flair of completely different feels without adding too much difficulty in the movement. However, there are only so many places you can stand looking at another dancer with 2 couples. Now, one of the things about variety, if you remember, choreographic variety is not about more movements or difficult movements or a lot of DBD stuff. 2 couple choreography is a little bit different. But you can get really, really good choreographic variety just by dancing with different people. Head square through, I'm dancing with my corner. Pass through, trade by, I'm dancing with the right-hand box. Star through, pass through, bend the line, I'm dancing with different people again and a different orientation. I can do the same sequences and get lots of variety. With 2 couple choreography, it's a little bit different. Okay? 2 couple choreography allows you to delve into those extended applications. After all, how many places can you go? What can you do? So what you're going to do is doing things from unexpected positions, like a half sashayed position or a left-handed position. And remember what I said at the beginning, when you're only working with 2 couples, the dancers are tuned on. You've told them couple number 1, couple number 3, couple with their backs towards the callers, number 1 lady, number 1 man. They know that, so they're expecting something a little different. A little different does not mean way out in left field and funky, just a little bit different. From your 2, call a left swing through, girls run. veer to the left, California twirl, something like that. Or right and left through and a half sachet, once and a half. Now I've got a tandem on a single line, double pass through. It's just one line doing a double pass through. Boys do U-turn back, do side do make a wave. Girls do a U-turn back. Guess what? I'm back in facing couples. Touch a quarter, scoot back, no problem there. Boys run, I'm in facing couples. But reverse Dixie style, boy in with the left, meet a girl across with a right hand. Oh, great. Now the girls are in the middle, girls trade. Recycle, sweep a quarter more, reverse half sachet again. Oh, wait a minute, that person's going in front, square through four, do a U-turn back. All of these things are not difficult with two couples because they don't have anybody to watch or distract them on the outside. It feels different, but you can extend or you can come all the way back. Okay. When we talk about asymmetric choreography, you can use a lot of asymmetrical choreography with two couples. And I'm going to cover this in a little more detail. Personally, I want to recommend that newer or journeyman callers wait until they're comfortable with the standard and some of the easier extended choreographic applications before doing anything asymmetrical, even with two couples. Okay? It takes skill, it takes practice to keep that smooth. Get comfortable with the calling first. Asymmetrical choreography happens when one half of the square is different than the other half, or in two couples, when one couple is different than the other couple. In two couple calling, it means that one couple has done something and the other couple has not. For example, couple number one do a half sachet. I'm now asymmetrical. The facing couples are asymmetric. It's not a boy looking at a girl. It is important, however, to understand the basic difference between these two. So symmetric, most of all square dancing choreography is symmetrical. That means when one half of the square does something, the other half of the square does something. Each dancer and the diagonal opposite. For instance, boy number one, boy number three, boy number two, boy number four. They're always going to be opposite each other on the other side of the square facing an opposite direction, or the mirror image. If you draw a line from anywhere straight through, cutting that square in half, their directional opposite will be exactly on the other side facing the opposite direction. The set is mirrored. Asymmetrical choreography means that something has changed on one side, but not on the other. Someone or someones do not match their diagonal opposite. That is often a big problem child for many callers unless you're really comfortable and confident in your calling. So again, I highly recommend avoid it until you are comfortable. Okay. So I know I'm harping on this, but I cannot stress it. This is more of a theory class. It's something to be aware of, but until you are comfortable with it, avoid asymmetrical choreography. Nonetheless, we have to cover the topic. It's a lot simpler with two couples to give a specific direction because this is what we've done. The other couple is aware that only one has done something different, and it is expected. Also for the callers, there's only, like I said, so many ways you can move the dancers with two couples, and the gender restrictions make the choreographic limitations easy. For example, star through, right and left through, etc. In two couples, it can give more variety and it's easier to do than when you're working with the whole square. It's easy to introduce the concept. This is for your journeyman or your more advanced level callers. You can introduce the concept of asymmetric dancing to the dancers so that eventually when you do get to a full square, it's not a shock. What you're doing is you're building trust in the dancers. It's also much easier for a caller to sight call than four couple asymmetric calling because pairing genders is easier as it's corrective, as is corrective flow movements. You can have one person turn around, you can have one couple turn around. You tend to have that one odd couple in a full square when calling asymmetric that is awkward to correct. So you'll say, oh, all the head boys do U-turn back, bend the line. It's good for one, or all the head boys run, bend the line. It's good for one side, but it's awkward for the other. You can avoid that with two couple choreography. The caller is allowed to specifically directionally call as an expected norm, so it doesn't feel like you're lost or that someone has made a mistake. This is also why dancer identification is important to stress at the beginning, and it becomes more important here. So example commands are, far boy number 2, or the nearest boy, or whatever. You're giving a direction call. You can also use single dancer identification. Number 1 boy, run. Number 3 girl, turn around. Those kinds of things. You can have those facing the callers do a U-turn back, or that kind of stuff. It's expected that you're going to do that, especially if you started with asymmetric. So they're going to be listening for that. If you're going to do this, you want to have a couple get-ins, which are simple and immediate. Once you do something different, the dancer's ears are going to turn on. So if you say, couple number 1, do a half sachet, or couple number 1, do a U-turn back, or couple number 1, promenade halfway and stand behind couple number 3, I've given a different set of variables for the dancers to think on. As with get-ins, you also want to have a get-out. And these will always work with 2 couple asymmetric dancings after a setup. Learn to recognize the formations. They get you back to facing couples. And if you're not at home, you just dance them as per normal. I wish Daryl was here, because Daryl gave a really good session on just normalizing and move the dancers as 2 couples. But essentially, once you get 2 couples facing, you can do all sorts of things. So if we're asymmetrical in a 2 couple, say, for instance, a boy, girl, wave, use boys run, ends fold. Do not use boys run, bend the line, because it's bad flow. You don't want to run out and bend in. Or sorry, run in and bend out, I should say. Okay, you use an ends fold from a boy, girl line, star through, and the leaders trade from a boy, boy, pass through, girls fold. Now I've got the girls folding, so they're all looking in front of the boy. And from there, it's just a matter of using movements that are going to get them back to that 2 couples. Daryl said it very easily: normalize, and then use movements to get them where you want them. So let's look a little, once again, I do want to stress, asymmetrical calling is not recommended for newer callers or journeyman callers until they're comfortable with just calling 2 couple choreography. But we have to cover the theory in it, which is what we're doing. So let's look at some sequence examples, and this will make it a little easier to understand. Remember, any 2 couple 0 module works, and it may be used as a 2 couple 2 home module. For example, swing through, boys run, wheel and deal, you're home. Yay! Perfectly legitimate. Nothing wrong with it. It's a complete 2 couple sequence. And there's several examples of these at the end of the text. So when you download the material off the OC Callers website, there's a whole bunch of 2 couple examples that you can look through and work through. So if we talk symmetric sequence, we can do a right and left through, ladies chain, square through 3, Alaman left, promenade home. It's a short walk, basically a couple straight, or 4-step promenade. You can do right and left through, do a half sachet, square through 4. Oh, wait a minute, I'm doing a half sachet square through. Oh, that feels weird. Oh, panic. No, it's not a panic, because they're tuned in. Girls run, everybody face in, you're home. Bang. Oh, wow, what happened there? All these kinds of things are available to you. And there, as I said, there's a lot of different things. Don't be afraid of doing things that feel different with 2 couples. Circle left 3/4. As 2 couple dancing, that feels very different. If you, in a static square, you say heads go into the middle and circle left 3/4, it feels a bit weird. They'll do it, but it's something different. In 2 couple dancing, it feels perfectly natural. Then you can do things like boys walk, girls dodge. Ooh, what happened there? I'm now in mini waves, single hinge, girls trade, spin the top again, recycle. You're home. Wow, what just happened? Your enthusiasm is going to direct that enthusiasm, and all this is symmetrical. The dancers are not doing anything wrong or anything different. But as I said, 2 couple calling also allows you to delve into that asymmetric by giving bits of directional calling. So as an example, swing through, spin the top. The nearest boy, the boy closest to the caller, run around 3 dancers. The nearest girl, run around 1 dancer. Everybody wheel and deal. Star through, just the leaders trade. You're home. Yay, clap, clap, clap. And they're going, what? Around 3, around 1, that feels so weird. It's really, really simple, because the hardest part in that is you had to have a boy count of 3. We're not used to counting that high. You can give other directions, like couple number 1, promenade halfway and stand behind couple number 3. Just the boys cloverleaf while all the girls face in. Now I've got boys going somewhere in single file. I've got the girls facing in. What's going on? Boys split the girl. They're splitting on a single line. First boy go left, next boy go right. I now got a line, boys on the outside, girls on the inside. Oh, what am I going to do? Tag your line. Okay, all the way through. I've got the girls in lead. Girls, do a U-turn back. Do a do-side-do. There's my mini wave. Boy, run around a girl. Guess what? You're home. That felt so weird and wonderful. They'll do it. Not a complaint, because they're tuned into it. But now they're suddenly at home and you're going, what the heck just happened? If you learn to use these techniques, you can give a lot of fun to the dancers. Just don't abuse it. But as you can see, when you're calling to 2 couples, the wording and presentation and the terminology you're going to use is distinctly different and has a different feel specifically to 2 couple choreography than calling to just 2 couples in a square. Okay? Both the caller and the dancer's expectations are focused differently. 2 couple calling is not just calling to 2 couples in a square. That's isolated. The big thing that everybody worries about, resolution. Resolving 2 couple pairings is easy to do, and resolving at home is easiest. You get the dancers into facing couples, you pair them up with their partner, and then you maneuver them back into the home position. Daryl Clendenin was in here several weeks ago when we were talking about normalizing and setting them up for resolution. Bob Elling talked about it, Tony talked about it, and they gave 6 movements, which are basically your favorite movements for moving dancers into a specific position. That was the flutter wheel and the reverse flutter wheel. That brings the girl across or the boy across. The ladies chain, that brings the girl across. The right and left through, that changes what side they're on or sequence. Star through, and the sweep a quarter more. Those 6 calls are your friends. The basic idea is just to keep calling until you recognize that the dancers are home. As I said, if you're moving the dancers symmetrically in 2 couples, there's only so many places they can go without getting home. Now, I want to say this on the degenerative use. I said this at the beginning. When calling in 2 couples, right and left grand and weave the ring are being used over and over and over in the singing call variation online for 2 couple calling. Okay? I want to stress this. Right and left grand and weave the ring do not work well with 2 couples. You either have to tell them to go 2 hands and swing your partner, or go 4 hands and swing partner number 5. Personally, I find it best to avoid that in patter, although, as I said, it has become popular in 2 couple Zoom singing calls. An Alaman left followed by a promenade home works well. Okay, for example, from a static square, right and left through, star through, right and left through, slide through, square through, Alaman left, promenade home. Things like the 8-chain family, odd numbers, or a do passo. Okay, these things can build bad habits that are difficult to lose when you go back into a square, into a full square. For example, 8-chain 3 can work as a gimmick, but 8-chain 2 is just a right and left through. And if you do an 8-chain 4, chances are you're going to get a right and left through followed by, oops, where'd my square go? Okay, it's something you got to ask yourself as a caller. Yeah, I can do it, but am I doing this for me, or am I doing to be clever, or am I doing it for the dancers? Is this something you want to do often, and then you got to reteach it when you get back into 4 couple calling? Personally, I say no. Degenerative use should only be used sparingly and with a purpose. Okay, never used as a trick or because the caller is technically correct and is just being clever. It's just not cool. For me personally, it's best to avoid the degenerative use. You've got 95% of all of the movements available to you in basic and mainstream that you can call with 2 couples. You don't have to take that other 5% and, excuse the word, but bastardize the calls just to show how clever you are. You don't need it. So pros and cons. The pro, calling two couple is easier to workshop calls. The caller can concentrate on half sashayed or left-hand setups or work calls from unusual positions. For example, zoom is usually called from a double pass-through, and at plus, the call peel-off is frequently only called from a completed double pass-through formation. With two couples, you can work it from a tandem couple, mini-wave boxes without having additional dancers in the square distracting from the focus call. One second. Sorry about that. Okay. Number two, dancers are able to focus on their position and the formation they're in a lot better when only two couples are being active. For example, in a normal four couple square, if you call heads past the ocean, swing through, extend, swing through, and then call a scoot back, you're likely going to get a poor success rate because the dancers were focused on their wave in the middle. They just did a swing through. Then they're focused on the wave. Oh, I've done this. I've gone up and extend. I'm focused on my outside wave. And I call scoot back. My dancer focus is on the wave, not in the box. So they have to change that whole mindset. With two couples only, that abrupt change doesn't happen. Their focus is on who they're dancing with in the group of four. And it's also good for callers to practice their sight calling. Two couple calling is much easier to resolve because you only need to remember one couple instead of two. Pair up one couple. If you got them on the outside, once you put them back on the outside, you're resolved. Just keep calling until you recognize you've got couple number one in their home position and then say, you're home. Yay, great excitement. As with anything, there are some cons that you have to be aware of. One, it might be a bit boring if it's done too often or if it's done improperly. It is problematic for singing calls, but it is doable with some degenerative manipulation and the use of some movements or having a lot of standing on promenades and weaves, etc. Okay, and I personally don't like it, but a lot of dancers have accepted that now, and it's become a big thing, especially with singing calls. The biggest pitfall, however, is flow, meaning both achieving smooth flow and avoiding bad flow. So when we talk about avoiding bad flow, keep the dancers moving to the music. With two couples, you should have no stop and go dancing that is not part of the movement sequence. For example, just the girls zoom while the boys would stay static, or the couple facing me trade, the other couple static. Those are intentional stoppages, and the caller must concentrate on smoothly transitioning from one movement to the next. The second one is avoid overflow. Overflow happens way too often with just two couples because there are just two couples. The radius of two couple dancing is smaller. The movement around the center is tighter than it is with a four couple square. And the caller's got to ensure that you do a lot of direction changes so that the dancers alternate between turning to the right and turning to the left. So let's have a look at these two sequences here. All right, and we'll just move that up there. Can you guys all see terminations?
Yep.
Yes? Somebody's okay.
Yes.
So if we look at sequence number one, okay, square through, girls run left, single hinge, etc. Okay, so square through four. Okay, that's all turning right. Girls run left. Okay, there's a direction change, single hinge. There's a direction change in a static, swing through, two direction changes, another swing through. Chain down the line, the girls are changing, boys are turning, there's another direction change. Slide through, another direction change, reverse flutter wheel, pick them up, and you're home. Now, both of these were taken out of video. These sequences were taken out of videos of online calling, two couple calling. This is a sequence that is done a lot, the second sequence. And I want you to look at this very carefully and tell me something. Touch a quarter, scoot back, circulate once and a half. Just the boys cast off three quarters and everybody wheel and deal. Touch a quarter and roll back away and you're home.
Poor
What
girls.
do you see in those sequences?
The
They're
poor girls.
constantly going to the right.
Normally, it's the girls that have the overflow. The first sequence, I have absolutely no problem with. That's a nice little sequence. This one, however, just count the right, pick boy number one and just count how many times he goes to the right before he goes to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 right-hand turns that are almost a pivot.
Watch girl number one. She's not far behind.
Yeah, that's what
I was going to say the girls never make a left-hand turn.
And neither do the boys. Now watch girl number one. One, 2, 3. Now she has a forward motion to back that up. Okay, it's a big sweep. 1. So for the girls, it's not quite as bad because they've got that long sweep followed by a break, but it's still all right-hand turns. There's no direction change. And yet I've seen that sequence about 9 times on various two-couple videos. So which one of those would you think would be good flow and which one do you think would be bad flow? Those are the kinds of things that you have to be asking yourself. So in the handout, there's some simple two couple facing zeros that you can use with the Sicilian circle or two couple dancing. They keep the partner relationships, but remember the versatility of the circle as a teaching tool, as a review or a warm-up tool, is that you do not have to keep the pairings if you don't want to. That's why I say it is the ultimate two couple dancing tool if you can get used to it.
Can you put that last slide up a second ago? The second
questions?
to the last slide. No, the one before that.
Yep. That one.
Yeah.
This is not a bad sequence. This is a horrible sequence. Yet this sequence here, the horrible sequence, is one that gets called a lot. You done with that, Janet?
I want to point out a thing, Mel, about that overflow in the second one. You could have people with balance problems actually collapse on the floor using that sequence.
Absolutely.
I mean,
if you're not sure of what that feels like, just stand up, pick a point where you've got yourself and a phantom partner and run 12 times. And tell me how you feel at the end of it.
Well, when you see that, like you said, that's done in a lot of videos, it tells me that they don't dance their own choreography.
That's correct. And the thing is, a lot of callers, they just visually, or they're citing it in their head. They've got two couples, they go, and they're focused on the choreo. Oh, I want to work circulate 1.5. I want to do a boy, just the boys cast off. I've got that little mini diamond here. I can do all sorts of things. They're looking at the formations and the variety of formations because there's really good variety of formations, but there's terrible flow. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now. So we've got a few messages in here. Where are we here? It's a good deck of cards. The first slide, 5 kings. Oh, hi, Daryl.
He was here.
Can contaminations get you to do asymmetric? No, not yet. You can in Colorama, but I'm not all that good on. Oh, Janet's posted that. Okay. So if you want to start playing with some asymmetrical stuff, I know Colorama is set up to do that, but I have not done it with Colorama. Janet, have you worked asymmetrical choreography in Colorama a lot?
Not to any extent. I played with it a little bit, but that was it.
Okay.
Yeah. My thing was I was going to try to write some choreography, and I always use my online programs to do it. And I do have Colorama on my PC, but all of you know I've been accused of being a Mac user, and that's my true love, being on my Mac. And for Reinig, I actually bought, or I thought I bought the program that allows me to run Windows on a Mac. And then I got a notice that said that was only good for 1 year. We don't sell the program, we rent the program. And so I lost my Colorama on my PC, on my Mac. And I just have to use it on the PC. I don't know that I have it installed, but it might be on one of my PCs somewhere.
Yeah. And one of the things that when you're doing asymmetrical choreography, especially if you're only working two couples, your checkers are your friend because they're easy to move and you can see a lot of things a lot easier than you can, setting up and trying to figure out how to do this or how to adjust that.
Yeah, I liked during your presentation, and you gave the example. You did a swing through, spin the top, near boy run around 3, new girl run around 1, to create those lines.
That's right. And this is the thing that when you have something like that, for example, if I get two couples, couple number 1 has their back to me, couple number 3 is looking at me. If I say couple number 3, do a U-turn back, I'm now asymmetrical. I can say put the trailers in. I could say put the heads in. I could say put couple number 1 in, cast off 3/4, and then I'll say just the near 2 pass through. Now cast off 3/4 and the center's trade. Ends fold, everybody's at home. Little things like that, the dancers are going to go, wow, what the heck just happened there? All you're doing is saying, well, what did I do? And I say, okay, you guys turn around. The rest of you are going to just step in between them, bend the line. Ooh, these guys pass through, face in, back up, you're home.
Yeah, well.
You can make it exciting or you can make it boring.
I did. It was about 6 months ago. I was calling two couple in advance, and I have never done that before, okay? And just one night I decided to try because I wanted to be able to do a line of 4 facing the same direction, turn and deal, wheel and deal, or whatever. And so I had to go asymmetric to do that with two couple. And what I did, I had one hell of a tip. I mean, my brain exploded into possibilities. I realized there was literally almost nothing I couldn't do. And I was doing this at A2 then, but it is so much fun. And I just wish that I had the stuff because I've been writing choreography. Since October, I've written 400 pages of A2 choreography. I just love saving it. I put it in a huge binder, and then I'll go. I had one night. This was a lot of fun, and the crowd really got into it. I passed out a piece of paper to everybody and got them in a square. I say, now, couple number 1, pick a number between 1 and 100. Couple number 2, 101 to 200. Etc. So that each one of the couples picked a number, and I said, bring up those list of numbers, and then I'm going to turn to that page and call it. And they got a kick out of that. It was an entertaining thing to do for a night.
Yeah. Another thing is you can actually, I've seen one caller do this. There's a gimmick. He says, I'm only allowed to use 6 movements. Everything else is your choice. And he would have the movements that he's going to call listed, and you pick out a number, and you'd have the dancer say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. And if I call anything other than what you say or these 6 movements, and guess what? The 6 movements are the 6 movements I showed you. But he would call, the dancers would actually call the dance. Okay, number 2, you'd have right and left through and pass through. Great, okay. Next dancer would have something like, square through 3, trade by. These combinations, and it would be set up with those 6 movements. You can set up any 2 couple combinations. One of the things I wanted to note was if you remember, I gave that example of couple number one, promenade, boys only cloverleaf. Now I've got one static group, girls face in or girls face right, however you want to do it. And then they come in and the boys split the girls working individually. You can do this concept even easier. Like if I start the same way, couple number one, promenade halfway. Now I have just the girls zoom. Okay, then I could have everybody zoom. Then I could have just the boys zoom. Now I've got them working individually, but I haven't changed anything. But we are going to do is we're going to change it to asymmetric. So couple number one, promenade halfway, stand behind the other couple. Just the girls zoom. Now have everybody do a cloverleaf so it feels like a normal cloverleaf, but they're coming in single file. This is on your own track, single file, double pass through. Now they're standing back to back, but they're single file. Leaders do a U-turn back. Do a do-si-do and pass through. Well, I would call do-si-do once and a half. I've got a boy looking at the girl in the middle. Just the centers star through. The others face the music and fold. Now I've got everybody after the star through face the music and fold. It feels so different. Square through 3, 2, 1, Alaman left and promenade home. It's about a 4-step promenade. If I call it like that, but if I do couple number one, promenade halfway, just the girls zoom and everybody cloverleaf, get away from there. On your own track, double pass through and just the leaders do a U-turn back. Do a do-si-do, go once and a half. If you can, star through, the others face the music. Those that face, fold, whatever, put the excitement, put the generation of how you say that out on the floor. Because the dancers are just hearing, what's my part? What's my part? What did I do? Did I do my part right? It doesn't matter how complex or how simple it is. How you present it is what's going to make it interesting for those dancers to play with what you're doing. And once you lead them to that Alaman left, bang, they're happy because they got their part so wow that they think, wow, I'm doing really, really difficult, complex choreographic stuff, but you're not. You're having fun playing with the dancers and they're having fun thinking they're succeeding at something that's difficult. That's not. Yes, Bob.
Yeah, I really want to point out that everybody that's listening, hear how he just did the material. The head square through, forehand. And now do-si-do, he's emphasizing things. He's giving depth to his presentation. And I can tell you that 90% of the callers would have called the same thing, head square through. Do-si-do, swing through, spin the top, right to left through. And they might throw something in that is equally monotone. And that's it. Now, I try to do what Mel was doing, but how I taught myself to do that was take a figure like head square through 4, swing through, spin the top, right to left through, square through 3, whatever. And I would go into the bathroom, look at the mirror, and talk those things to myself. Like, I want to get them.
She's really suffering now.
Well, a head square through, when I go, when I get forehand, get around, I go, when I do side do. And then I would do, well, let's bring them down a little bit. Head square through, and I go, and now do side do, the Carter girl. Trying to make it melt or make it a question. Head square through, do a do-si do. And you can throw those little bits and pieces into your presentation to end up with the full texture of a delivery that Mel was using. That's how you own the dancers. Head square through.
Vocal inflection is very important in your delivery and part of your showmanship. But the big thing to remember is choreography, while important, is not what is the most important. Dancers honestly do not care about choreographic sequences or choreographic complexity unless they're dancing well above A2, like good A2 or challenge level dancing. Dancers want to dance, they want to have fun, but they want to be able to succeed at what they do. Your job is to make it interesting and fun for them at whatever program. If it's night 1 of basics or it's, class 27 of an A2 program. Make it fun and make it interesting. There are some excellent callers out there that have good vocal intonation and changes. Now, it's now just after 10 o'clock, so I know some of you only have allocated an hour. By all means, you don't have to stay, but we're going to open the floor up for discussion. As I say always, all of these sessions are recorded on the Orange County Caller website by Mark Hart. They are available for download, as is all the material that I present and a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, so you can download the slides and download the handouts and the speaking notes and go through them at your own pace. I make these available for everybody. I know there's a few callers that are from different countries that have actually taken a lot of these and translated them so that they can go into their own languages and have a better understanding. Some people use them at their Callers Association meetings to discuss various aspects of calling. It's all there. It's all free of charge, but I do want to say a very, very big thank you to Mark Hart for making that available to everybody. A lot of what is going on cannot be done without what he does. I'm going to make a blatant product plug here. Joe Ubelacker does Callers in Cars. It's basically a coffee and interview discussion session with various callers around the world. He does that every Sunday in North America. That'll be Monday for us over here in the real part of the world. But it's a good thing to tune in on. You get a chance to meet and greet and actually ask questions to some callers like Tony Oxendine. I believe you got Ed McAfee coming up this weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. But all sorts of callers that are just names on record labels or the big names in calling. They're available and they're presentable, and you get to learn a little bit about them. Next fortnight is Easter weekend. We will not be having a session on Easter weekend. That's the weekend of the 8th. We will be back on the 16th for us, the 15th for the rest of you, with Bob Elling. Bob is going to be giving us a discussion on better managing who's with who and how to get them there. I'm not going to steal some thunder, but I hope I have given a little bit of a segue into making what Bob's going to do so much easier. But it is an approach to choreographic management that is probably known by all the callers that have been calling for a long time, but one that Bob is actually able to explain. It's, as you look at choreographic and sequence development, you see these gaps appear, which is the linkages between calling techniques and calling methodologies. And Bob I've asked him to come in and do this because it is a specific methodology that he has, which is one of those bridge gaps between the simple, here's a module, here's two couple calling, to here's choreographic management and different sequences, different positions, making it aware. And that's all I'm going to say about it because I don't want to steal Bob's thunder. But it is going to be a session hopefully well worth turning into, and that will be the weekend after Easter. So we look forward to that. And I think that's about it. So let's open the floor up for discussion. Yes, Stephen. Stephen, you had your hand up? You're muted.
Yeah, my video's out. Sorry. Too bad you don't have a way to see when people slip in and out while you're busy doing your presentation. Daryl slipped in right when you said you wish you were saying you wish Daryl was here. He was here, and then he slipped out.
Yeah. No, Daryl, if you ever have the opportunity, Daryl has retired pretty much from calling. He does come in periodically, but he does do a lot of training sessions, especially with new callers, and he looks at things, especially from a new caller aspect. And if you're able to tune in on that as new callers, it's great for foundation fundamentals. And he talks a lot about normalizing, moving the dancers. There's only those 6 movements that I stated there, the star through, the reverse flutter wheel, the flutter wheel, right and left through, etc. They are excellent for manipulating dancers into a position where you control where they are on the floor, and they will work anywhere. And he's given a lot of uses of that. I'm still trying to pin him down to come in and give a whole session, but he's very hard to pin down that way. But if you do get a chance to tune in or get some one-on-one time or join some of those new caller sessions, they're very, very worthwhile.
He's really not retired anymore.
No, he's come back.
He's come back.
Old callers never retire.
No. No.
He called for Jim's club and he realized how much he missed it. And so he's back.
Oh, good.
Yes.
That was fun. Yeah, one of my heroes in calling, where I loved his style and loved how he did and had a huge influence on me, had retired completely from calling. That was Ron Schneider.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I flew to Kentucky to visit him, and he said he did a few one-night stands. So I set him up with Squareview, gave him my music library, and got him back into being a square dance caller. At one point, before he died, he even had 3 clubs going at once. And it was like being young again. You know, old callers who really love calling. You never get beyond that love for calling, or at least from my point. I guess some guys get tired and quit. But a really good caller, I don't think ever loses it. It's part of you, right, Joe?
Well, yes. I might quit calling, but I'm not going to stop thinking about it.
Yep. And I can't imagine myself quit calling, but now maybe the opportunity won't be there. And in the plus and beginner, I didn't have any clubs either lost their venue, didn't have a place to dance, and that's happened to most of my clubs. And so I ended up not having a club, except my one group, which is my A2 group, which has been, oh gosh, it's the candy store. These dancers are so good, that I can make up stuff on the fly and they can do it, and try this asymmetric stuff and do it. And
yeah, well, there is a lot of that going around in the world, and there are some exceptional callers out there, and there's some exceptional choreographers out there. And one of the reasons for these sessions is there are many, many different approaches. One caller that I do consider an exceptional caller is actually here, and that's Jeff Seidel, who's down there at the bottom. Jeff takes an approach to calling where the dancers are inside out, upside down, and backwards, it seems, if you look at the choreography intricately. But he just sets the dancers up for success most of the time. And it's a technique. And I may be putting a little bit of extra fatty butter on the bread this time, Jeff, because I still want you to come in and give us a session. But these are the kinds of things that there are many, many callers out there that are available. You take care, that are available to give and give and give to this activity, especially for new callers. And I cannot stress this enough. We have to develop new callers. We have to develop new and younger dancers and new and younger callers if we want to get younger dancers. And it's only through the time and the effort of everybody that's in this room saying, right, I'm going to pick somebody and I'm going to assist them to develop their own call. I'm past my prime. I may never get the young dancers in the door because, me wearing a bikini and singing Wrecking Ball like Miley Cyrus just would turn too many dancers away. But she could do that, or he could do, the Justin Bieber popular. I don't even know if Justin Bieber is popular, not to me, but you know what I mean? To get those people in the door and get them interested in the activity. And the only way we're going to do that is to sell it as fun, not as a choreographic jigsaw puzzle. It's got to be fun. It's got to be sociable. It doesn't have to be SSD, but it has to be social and fun. It doesn't have to be plus. I personally, if I didn't have to learn to call plus and I wanted to call it festivals and conventions, I would probably still only be calling mainstream. I only call to A1 for that reason. I have no interest whatsoever in calling A2. I may have to now because A1 and A2 are pretty much one level now.
Yes.
Or one program. But that's a personal choice I've made. And, I've been asked to do, well, can I do a sessions on A2 or challenge? I cannot do sessions on A2 or challenge. I can set them up if somebody wants to do them, but I want to do them separate from these because my focus is on the foundations first. Because if you can get these basics down, you can call it any program level. It's just an application of a different set of material.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that is today's topic. As I said, today was more of a theory class. The material is available for download, as is the PowerPoint presentation. Thanks again, Mark. And does anybody have any questions on today's class or the topics we had for today? Wow. Must have been that good or that bad.
I got something out of it, Mel. I'm glad I was here.
I'm glad you did. And like I said, I'm going to be around, but send me an email. I'll be checking because I'm deploying again tomorrow for a week. And then I'm back for a day, and then I could be gone again for another 3 weeks on emergency management. So send me an email with what we're discussing about, and I'll see what I can come up with. And hopefully next Saturday, maybe we can get a little bit, my Saturday or Friday, a little bit of time to have a look at. And for anybody else, if you want to have an open discussion, I can leave the room open, but I believe that's it for today.
Well,
So,
Mel, I
wow.
have a question
Thank
real
you.
quick. You had
Yes, go
said
ahead.
that you're not going to be meeting on April 8th, but you said the following week. So that would be like the 15th, 16 weekend, or did you meet the
Yes.
following 2 weeks after that?
No. We're not
Well,
meeting on the weekend, Easter weekend, which is the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. I've decided not to have a session on that weekend. So we'll be back on April 16th with Bob Elling.
And that's the 15th here.
The 15th in the US.
So do you usually do every 2 weeks then, or is it kind of hit and
Yeah,
miss?
I've cut the sessions down to fortnightly.
That's every 2 weeks.
Well, I know
yes,
I've missed a lot of them just because you pick the weekends because our club dances twice a month and it's usually the same nights you have thing, but our dance was canceled for tonight. So that's why I'm here.
Well, that's good.
Well-
Then my dance or my presentation will happen on your off week.
So what'll happen is we'll be going to the 16th, then to the 30th, and so on and so forth.
Well, Bob, you think it's my off week, but that's when the club that I started is dancing that day. But I think we
Oh.
danced earlier, so I should be able to make it. So
Okay. Well, Janet,
Oh.
you're always welcome anytime.
I know I thoroughly enjoy your sessions. I honestly think that you do some of the best presentations, and I think mainly it's the PowerPoint slides that you incorporate into your presentations. The one thing I find very intriguing about all of the presentations is that very, very rarely can I go to a presentation and there not be any plus in it, because my theory is we need to stick to mainstream and below, because that's where the new dancers come in. And if we've got an upside down pyramid, we're not going to last long. So
Yeah.
mainstream and below has to be the biggest group. And I find that callers can't have a discussion about calling without throwing some plus call or advanced call or something else in there. I mean, I'm an advanced dancer, so I can dance it, but that need not be our focus.
Oh, I agree.
Yes.
And I have purposely restricted, like, except in some cases, like when we had Ed Foote in here, we had a partial session on the use of Dixie Grand because he's got some really innovative stuff with it. Okay, that was specifically designed for that, but it was advertised accordingly. I specifically try and get the focus down at basic and mainstream, mainly because I want to encourage a lot of new callers. I want to encourage dancers and people to look at the foundations. There have also been, and we noticed during the COVID lockdown when we were getting something like 100 people in here in these classes, there was a lot of callers that were dancing challenge level that became callers because their callers quit in an area. And they became callers to challenge level clubs, but didn't have a foundation on basic and mainstream or how to call. So the focus here is on those foundation first principles, understanding the premise behind. But the other thing is There are some exceptional callers, exceptional teachers out there. The Caller Lab accredited caller coaching program is absolutely fantastic. However, the issue I have is the curriculum is akin to a week of being fed with a fire hose, and you've got to go and learn all this material. The material's provided. I'd rather look at one aspect, and if it takes us, as I said, 18 sessions to look at modules to cover the same amount of material that's covered in a 40-minute session at a caller school, well, then we'll take 18 sessions to deal with modules and discuss it. The only thing we don't get here is the practical microphone time. So these are predominantly theory, explanation, and understanding and discussion, which is the part that's lacking at a caller school. And at a caller school, you get more mic time. I wish there was a way I could do the more mic time, but unfortunately, reality doesn't permit that on Zoom. So.
Well, one of the things when you were talking about, you said something and it triggered my mind, and I thought, and when we're teaching or doing lessons, in order for those dancers to stick around, they have to enjoy the journey. When I teach lessons, I don't teach to a specific program that I have to get this much done in a required amount of time. I'm pretty much at my own free will, and I can teach however much I feel those dancers can absorb. So they are enjoying the journey.
I know when Bob Osgood designed the revamp, this is way too fast, nobody's going to be able to dance this program for square dancing, where basic and mainstream actually took 86 hours of instruction. Everybody said that's way too fast. Nobody can learn that, because basic was 2 years, mainstream was another year, and then you had a year of dancing before you even thought about going to +1. And then it became basic and mainstream somehow became a 20-week program because it was the introduction to plus. And then it advented onto, well, we're just going to get you dancing basic and mainstream, but we're going to teach you plus movements with that so you can join the club and dance with them. We'll teach the rest later. To this nightmare that we have. SSD came along to try and correct this. And SSD is a good program, but it is not being done the way it was supposed to be done. It's being
just,
used.
It's an alternate list of calls is all it is.
It's a stepping stone. It was designed to be a standalone program to reinvigorate square dancing, but the reality is human nature said right at the beginning, this will never be a standalone program. And dancers and callers that exist today do not want to change what they're comfortable with to do something else. Callers are like ex-wives. They don't mind sudden change. They just want 10 years notice.
Well,
And
I believe you had Jeff Priest on here a while back, and I am a big advocate of his program. I use his program a lot, and it works like a charm.
Yeah, and Jeff is an exceptional caller. He has a different teaching list and a different teaching methodology. We've had Betsy Gada on here that uses a modified teaching list. And the thing is, there is no right, there is no wrong. What there is callers that care about their dancers, making sure they have a good time and that their dancers are going to come back and have a good time and bring their friends with them. That's the right. And then there's the wrong, which is I'm hired by this club. Well, we're going to do SSD. So you've got 12 weeks to teach them. Then we're going to move the dancers up and you can dance them into the plus program. And there's no SSD. It's a format. It's a rush. And then we want you to run a second program in 12 weeks. There are callers that are using the SSD program. I haven't met any except for 2, which were exceptional, one of which is now dead, that actually ran SSD as a 12-week program successfully. I have met several that have run it as 16 to 18 weeks, one that runs it as 24 weeks because they build a lot of these just open fun dances into the sessions. Another area, they're combining 2 or 3 clubs that are all doing the same thing, and they're having a monthly dance at the level that all the clubs are. Guess what? We used to do this all the time. There was a 50 movement program called Basics. It was a great program, except callers didn't want to use it because it's difficult to call the basic program. It means the caller has to work. It's not difficult to call the SSD program because there's a lot of material from standard formation, but it's not a standalone program as it was designed, and it would never work as a standalone program unless everybody changed their mindset. Human nature is not going to happen. But we have post-COVID an opportunity to rebuild square dancing into something, and we're the only people that can do it. And it's people like Yolanda, it's people like Roz and John and whatnot down there doing this kind of stuff at whatever program level that they're doing. It's people like Bob that are saying, right, I'm going to build this fun and have people do this. Or Janet, here's how we're going to look at it. It's different than what you do, but it's not what we do, but we're all having fun. And eventually we're all going to talk together and say, right, Janet's going to host a dance and get everybody down. We've only done the first 27 movements of the basic program in order, if that's what you use, and say, okay, great, that's the program level for that night. Get a couple callers together and you have fun with that program level. But the reason things like that work, one second, Bob, the reason things like that work is because the callers that were calling those programs and the callers that will call those programs know how to use a limited amount of material, get the dancers moving, interacting with each other, and more importantly, having fun, because their focus is on the dancers enjoying the evening, not on the intricacies of choreography. I keep stressing this. Dancers don't give a rat's behind about choreography. They don't give a rat's behind about complexity. They don't give a rat's behind about asymmetrical choreography. Dancers like to dance what they know, learn something a little different, feel a little challenged, interact, have fun, and succeed. And if you can do that with 10 movements, or you can do that with 1,000 movements, the dancers aren't going to care. They just want to get there and have fun. Yes, Bob.
Yeah, it got me thinking about why I was so successful when I was first calling in that. And it was because I had fun. I was getting to dance, and seeing dancers do what I called was fun.
Yep.
And because it was fun for me, that's how it translated into fun for them. I kept it simple and everything, but to me, I always looked at what, I'm trying to think of his name, I can't now, but from Florida, his past, Jack Lazary, came out to California and he did a callers seminar. And he said, your goal should be that every time you call a dance, okay, you should have a perfect tip. And a perfect tip means that nobody breaks down. And so he asked this floor of 20 callers, how many of you called a perfect tip in your last dance? And my hand shot up right away. You know why? Because that's my goal every tip. You know, and one of the most, I can still visualize a dance I was doing once at A2, and I had 3 squares lined up and down the floor. And it was like a marching team. Everybody was in, you know, all 3 squares were perfectly flowing together in this kaleidoscope effect. And right in the middle of that tip, I knew I had them and they were doing it. And I was excited because that was success. But that same success can apply on the first night, the first tip. If you can get those people moving to the music and that and enjoy doing that, that's as good as it gets.
Yeah. I had the pleasure in East of meeting Jack only briefly once, but he said that concept of a perfect tip is a tip where all the dancers get through it and nobody breaks down.
Yeah.
And I, in my very subtle way, said, bullshit. And it came out that way. He says, what do you mean? I says, I've had dances where I have laughed, our whole square, the whole floor was laughing. And guess what? We all made mistakes and we had the greatest time ever.
Yeah, that could be too.
Some of us were breaking down on silly things that we should not have broken down. And we were laughing so hard at ourselves. it had nothing to do with the choreography. And he said, yeah, well, that's what I mean. But your goal is everybody gets through the material and they have fun and they have a good time doing it and nobody breaks down and nobody gets frustrated. Is the expansion of that a tip where nobody breaks down? I have seen tips called where nobody breaks down, everybody got through it, and everybody, when they got off the floor, wanted to put their coats on and go home because it was such hard work. But yeah, they got through it. And that's what I mean. And what Bob has said there is a great example, because although the dancers got through it, they had fun doing it. They succeeded because, yeah, there was a little bit of variety.